Zoot Suit's so much fun, right? Yeah! Zoot Suit Riot! Riot! Throw a comb through your coal black hair. Yeah. Yeah, fun, right? Zoot Suits! No. Hey there, YouTube. Robert here again. I am here to give you my submission for the next YouTube EDU Guru. I hope that I get selected for that. Please like my video. Hopefully I'll get considered for this high honor, so I'm super excited. This popular 1990s song by the Cherry Poppin' Daddies is all about the Zoot Suit Riots and has been a prom favorite for years since. It's an upbeat tune that is immediately identifiable and really catchy and fun to sing along to. Unfortunately, nobody really listens to the lyrics of this song. This song isn't really about having a good time, it isn't how great Zoot Suits are. If you listen carefully to the lyrics, it is a history lesson about real riots that took place in the 1940s in Los Angeles, California. The Zoot Suit Riots were a series of conflicts and riots which took place in 1943 between United States servicemen, sailors, and Marines, and with minorities in the Los Angeles area, mostly Mexicans who wore Zoot Suits. There were a lot of contributing factors to why this went on, and I'm going to try to go over a few with you. Contribution number 1, the Sleepy Lagoon murder. In 1942, a man named Jose Gallardo Diaz was found near a swimming hole that was later referred to as the Sleepy Lagoon. He was taken to the hospital as soon as they found him, but he never regained consciousness and died in the hospital. Autopsy reports indicate that he was very drunk and he had been hit in the back of the head. The cause of the damage to his skull was never found out. Despite a lack of evidence, a group of Mexican youths were arrested and convicted of this crime, several of them being convicted of murder and going to jail. The Latino culture found this as unjust and caused a lot of unrest between the Latinos and with the white community. Fortunately, following the Zoot Suit Riots, all of the arrested men were released after they appealed their case. Contribution number 2 probably should have been number 1 because it was the biggest contributor, and that is racism. So this happened all in the midst of World War II. At the time, the United States government was rounding up all of the Japanese and anyone who maybe looked Japanese and were putting them into internment camps. With the atrocities that were going on in Germany, I cannot believe that we did this, but we did, and it's horrible. The Mexicans were afraid that something similar was coming for them. They had been deported from the country, or at least attempted to, in the past, and so they were afraid that the government would try something like this again. Despite the looming tension, the Mexican community enjoyed strong community with each other and a lot of loyalty. It was very common to see groups of Mexican youths and sometimes African Americans or Filipinos all dressed in Zoot Suits out in public and hanging out together boldly and confidently. The Zoot Suit itself is distinguished by a few key features, starting with a pork pie hat, really broad shoulders, like they got big shoulder pads that get kind of pointy, makes you look nice and broad and strong, a really long coat, and then baggy pants. The pants would be fitting normally at the waist and at the ankles, but at the knees would balloon out to as much as 40 inches of the circumference. And if you don't know what 40 inches looks like, maybe you're not here in the United States. That is 40 inches. The suits required a lot of fabric, sometimes as much as 3 times the amount of fabric that a normal suit would require. This was wartime, and so fabric was scarce, and a lot of people considered wearing a Zoot Suit to be extremely unpatriotic. Women at the time were going without stockings, nylon was scarce, and so they gave it up. These Zoot Suits were still popular despite the expensive nature, and that made some people angry. Third thing, climate at the time. The war brought other troubles with it. Sailors and Marines from other parts of the country, from the South and from the Midwest, were in LA. They were poised to be sent out into the Pacific Theater or to defend the coast. And they weren't used to seeing large groups of minorities standing in the streets dressed so boldly and so sharply, and they didn't like that. Fights and disputes often broke out between the Latino Zoot Suiters and the white sailors and Marines. And sometimes it was because the Mexicans and the other Latinos were flirting with their women. Hence the line, "Now you sailors know where your women come for love." That was an insult that these Latinos were sending to the sailors, and they did not like it. Unfortunately, the racism was not exclusive to the white sailors. The Mexicans didn't like the sailors very much either, and there were some conflicts with them going after the sailors. And as you can imagine, fights would break out. The Zoot Suit Riots really started as a set of riots on June 3rd, 1943, when a group of about 200 sailors, they broke into an arms locker at the military base and got bats and chains, and then they all got in buses and taxis and headed for East Los Angeles. East Los Angeles was the neighborhood where almost all of the Mexican population was living at the time. The sailors and the Marines patrolled the streets and looking for anyone wearing a zoot suit. They had some trouble finding them until they ran into a group of 12 and 13-year-old boys. They savagely beat those boys and any of the men who came to protect them. They stripped those boys of their clothing and burned the clothing in the street. Violence escalated as sailors and the Latinos fought with each other in the streets, countering each other's counters and attacking one another at will. Unfortunately, the whites had the advantage and their numbers were greater. Common citizens joined into the riots and would drag African Americans and Latinos out of their cars and beat them in the streets. There was one incident at a theater where they brought up the house lights and they dragged all of the Latinos and blacks from their seats and up onto the stage in the theater and beat them publicly to the cheer of the crowds. When the riots finally ended and the military was conducting an investigation of these events, the military stated that the soldiers were merely acting in self-defense. The media also portrayed this event as some sort of ethnic cleansing. The LA Times especially were just awful in their coverage, and they lauded the rioters on the white side of things, applauding them for showing the Latinos who's in charge. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt expressed sadness for the event and stated that it is often that we do not handle issues of race very well. The Los Angeles Times countered by calling her a communist. Later on, the McGuckin Committee was formed to investigate the events, and it was finally determined that racism was the cause of these events. The United States Un-American Activities Committee conducted their own investigation, and they determined that the riots were started by covert Nazis. They were trying to sow unrest among the American people, apparently. Thank you, media, for doing what you do best: fear casting. The city of Los Angeles also created a ban on wearing zoot suits within the city limits. Eventually, the city did also ban the entrance of sailors and other servicemen into the city limits to help protect the Mexican community, but it was too little and too late. The damage was done. Later on, notable zoot suitors Cesar Chavez and Malcolm X went on to further the work of equality and civil rights for the minorities in the Los Angeles area. Thank you for listening to my lesson. I hope that you learned something important. I hope that you were appalled by the things that you heard. Racism is never okay and under any circumstances. And I hope that we can all rid ourselves of that awful filth. Thank you for watching my video. Please like it if you found it informative and if you think racism is terrible. Please also share this with your friends. I really would like to be part of this EDU Guru project. I'd like to share all my knowledge with YouTube and do research for you. So please share and please accept my application. In addition to all of that, you can like my Facebook page and you can follow me on Twitter. Links down in the description below. Please check me out and I'll fill you up with more goodness.